Hi, I'm Selena, and I'm from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester. And I'm here with Wanda Morris, who is our debut author. This is her first book. And she has written I guess, a thriller, suspense thriller. And it's called All Her Little Secrets. And for readers unfamiliar with your work, Wanda, how would you describe your book?
Sure. First, thank you for having me, Selena.
You're welcome.
I'm pleased to be here. I would describe All Her Little Secrets as a story about a Black female lawyer who gets caught in a very dangerous conspiracy after the death of her boss. And really, despite the body count in the book, it really is a story about family and love and loss and resilience. Um, Elise Littlejohn, who is the protagonist, she seemingly has everything going for her. She has this great, well paying job in Atlanta, a great group of friends, but everything takes a turn one day when she goes into the executive suite for a meeting with her boss. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she was having an affair with said boss, because that's on page like 2 or 3 of the book. She goes to the office for a meeting with him one morning, and she finds him dead in his office suite of a gunshot to the head. And then she does something that's really kind of unthinkable. She walks away without calling the authorities. And the reason why she does that is because she has her own dark secrets. She has a small town past that she's been hiding from everyone, as well as a brother who has spent some time on the other side of the law. So she walks away. Shortly after his death, she is promoted to replace her boss. And then things really take a turn because once she's in the executive suite, she uncovers some really shady dealings that throw her personal and her professional life into a nosedive. And she learns that she either has to save her brother or stop a conspiracy that's really, really more sinister than she ever thought.
Wow. That sounds really interesting. You've
There's a
hooked me
lot of
already.
layers.
You've hooked me already.
There's a lot of layers there.
Okay. So what was the inspiration for this book?
Yeah, so I, of course, I've worked in office settings for the bulk of my legal career. And I unfortunately have worked in some places that were considered toxic work environments. Um, they just didn't value people of color, women, anybody who was different from the mainstream. So that kind of served as the genesis. But more so, I once worked for an organization where everyone was considered family, like executive management always called everyone family. You're part of the family. But unfortunately, they didn't treat their employees like family. And someone in my department died unexpectedly. There was nothing sinister about it, but the person just died. But I was mortified by how quickly everybody went back to normal after this person died. It was like they cleaned up, the office and moved right along. And I just felt like, gosh, if this is family, this isn't really how you treat family. But it was interesting because it stayed with me, that idea of exploring family, whether it's the family we choose or the family that chooses us. I wanted to explore that. And you'll find it's a recurring theme throughout the book, this issue of family.
Hmm. So what were the steps that you took to bring it from initial inspiration to a finished product?
Oh boy, that's a 13-year long journey. I originally wrote probably about 70% of the book about 13 years ago. I think I started it in 2008. And I put it away. I put it away for 7 years because I convinced myself that nobody was going to want to read this book. I thought, you know, it's a story of a Black woman. She's in her, late 40s. She works with really awful people. People go to a book to escape. Who would want to escape to this world with these really awful people? And just not feeling secure in my writing. So I put it away for 7 years. And then I had a bit of a health scare about 6 years ago. And it made me think, gosh, I work at this really stressful job. I am raising 3 kids. What am I doing that gives me joy? And it's always been writing. I've always loved to write. I've always loved to read. So I decided to go back. So I pulled that manuscript back out of the computer drawer, so to speak. And I committed to it this time. And I, started taking classes because it was pretty bad. That first draft was really, really rough. But I took classes and, attended workshops. I joined writing communities so that, I learned and was supported by fellow writers. And then we come here. I mean, it was a lot of rejection. I queried this book for years and, trying to find an agent, and was just very unsuccessful at that. And finally, I attended a conference in New York City called Thriller Fest. And as part of the conference, you could pitch your book to different agents. And one of the agents there, Lori Galvin, I pitched the book to her. She said, "Oh, I love it. Send me the manuscript." And I sent it to her. And 24 hours later, she sent me a letter back and she said, "I'm loving this book. Let's set up a call." And I was like, "Yay." And she signed me up. We went through some more revisions on the book and went on submission to different publishers. And 12 days later, I was in an auction and William Morrow bought the book. So here we are.
Oh, that's wonderful. So what kind of research went into writing the book? And
I got to admit candidly, I think I was my own research.
okay.
As a practicing lawyer, right? As a practicing lawyer, I was able to draw on my lived experiences working within the legal department of companies. And I tried to bring that to the pages of this book. I tried to make it realistic, particularly around the office scenes. And kind of what it's like working day to day in the office. So I think I was my own research there for the scenes because the book is told in dual timelines. There is the timeline that follows Elise Littlejohn as a 14-year-old, and then kind of the present day. So for some of the scenes in the 14-year-old Elise Littlejohn timeline, I did do a lot of research on various topics around abuse and so forth. I don't want to go into too much detail because it would be a spoiler, but I did do quite a bit of research, including talking to some people to cover that section.
Okay. What was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and putting out your newest book?
Oh gosh, the biggest challenge. It sounds kind of crazy, but I think the biggest challenge was to continue to believe that I could do it, if that makes any sense.
Not crazy. No, not at all.
Okay, good. I mean, well, there's so much rejection in the publishing industry. And so first I had to get over the challenge of my own self-doubt. I mean, I wrote a book and then I put it away, because I didn't believe in myself. And so once I worked past that, then I had to get past, just an inordinate amount. I mean, if I were to count up the letters, I was approaching 100 rejections. But to get a rejection and still continue to say, I believe in this book, I think there's a story here that may be of interest to people, is a challenge, because it's so easy to just say, you know what, maybe they're right. Maybe I will give up. It's much easier to give up than to continue to fight. So I think my biggest challenge was to persevere despite all the rejection I got.
So that's actually also kind of the greatest lesson that you've learned, isn't it?
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. It has been my biggest lesson that despite the rejection, because I kept believing there's something in this story. I knew that because the story focuses primarily on women, whether they were women in the workplace, whether they were women as they were related and interacted with each other on a personal level. I always knew that, this through line of, strong women, particularly strong Black women, was something that could be of interest to someone.
Mhm.
And so my biggest lesson was continue, dig deep into that, stay on course. But that's hard. That's hard in this industry.
Yeah. And I think right now is the perfect time for it to be coming out.
Yeah, I don't give short shrift to the fact that, books kind of come in their own time. And maybe a lot of that rejection that I got earlier on was a reflection of the fact that the times were not ready to accommodate a book that speaks so openly and candidly about the issues that are covered in my book.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's perfect timing right now. So what piece of advice would you want to share with other writers?
Hmm. I'd say, and I know it sounds like a cliche, I'd say read and write as much as you can.
Mhm.
I always say read as much as you can because not only do you learn what a good book looks and sounds like, but you also learn what a bad one looks and sounds like. And so you won't repeat those mistakes. I mean, we've all, read books where you want to throw them up against the wall because you're like, that was atrocious, right? Um, but I think that, when you're continually reading, and read in and outside the genre that you love too, because it expands. I One of the comments that I frequently get about the book is that the timeline that covers Elise Littlejohn as a 14-year-old girl, that the writing of that timeline um, was very lyrical, is one of the words that I heard, and I think that's a very high compliment. What I intended to do there was not that I was setting out to write a literary piece, but I wanted to write chapters that kind of gave people kind of a breather after you're kind of running through this pace of the thriller side of the book. I wanted people to kind of rest. And so if you're reading books that are, outside of mystery, or you're reading literary, or you're reading women's fiction, I think you can bring all of that to your writing process, and make it that much better.
Mhm.
So I would advise read and write as much as you can, and read outside your genre that you enjoy as well, or that you write.
Good point. Now, you had mentioned that you had gone to a conference. So are there any groups or clubs or organizations that you would recommend for other writers that might have helped you?
Oh, absolutely. Because I write in the mystery thriller genre, my groups are primarily based around that genre. So, for example, I am a member of Crime Writers of Color, which is a group of mystery and thriller writers of various diverse backgrounds. And there are probably about 300 of us now. And we all write everything from, you know, literary mysteries to, romance and suspense, cozies, thrillers, what have you. Um, and it's a very supportive group. I also am a member of Sisters in Crime, which I highly recommend because they have some of the most incredible and valuable resources, particularly if you're a new writer or like me, you were trying to break into being published. And they have all sorts of workshops and seminars that they make available online to their members. I highly recommend groups like that. I'm also a member of Mystery Writers of America. Again, another great resource, in addition to just meeting some really, really wonderful and talented writers that, become your friends, that help and lift and support you.
Great. Um, so what else can we expect from you in the near future?
Ooh, well, I am rapidly trying to finish up revisions now on my second book, which is again a thriller. It does take place in a historical context, but I think readers will still enjoy that kind of fast pace. What the heck is going to happen next? You'll find that in this book as well. Um, so it's been a great ride. I'm new, so everything is like fresh and honeymoonish to me, but I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
Great. Now I have a couple of questions about being a writer.
Mhm.
Um, what is your favorite part about being a writer on the whole writing and publishing process?
Ooh, I would say actually rewriting. Um, I, when I start to write a new project, I just throw it all down on paper or in the computer. I'm considered a plotter, I guess, when you think about this
Okay.
plotter pantser, because I kind of have to know where the story is going. I don't always know how the story will end. As a matter of fact, I never know how the ending will come out, but I kind of draft up a loose outline. And then from that, I start to write the scenes and the story. Um, and it's a mess when I first put it down because sometimes the names will change in the middle of the story. I'll be like, oh, I could name that person that instead.
Excuse me.
Um,
Excuse me.
Sure. And so I just make sure I get it all down. And then to actually go back in and rewrite all those scenes, that's where the characters really start to flesh out. And I get a broader sense of, who they are. And so I can delve down into like, here's something that this particular character would say, or this is the way this particular character would behave. But I think if I could go back to the previous question, that's probably another thing I'd recommend to people who are writing. Just make sure that you get it down, because you can always go back and make something bad better. But if you don't have anything down and you're constantly saying, oh, I'm thinking about the ideas, or they're kind of roaming around in my head, I think then, it's that much harder. So once I get it down on paper, I really, really enjoy going back in and fleshing out those characters and creating settings and, putting the emotion into the book.
Oh, that's a good idea. Um, so what has been your favorite adventure during your writing career?
Oh, my favorite adventure. This one, like being published. I mean, after 13 years, because even during that period of time where I wasn't necessarily working on this book, I was still thinking about these characters and I was still, you know, daydreaming about them. They would, come into my head in the middle of traffic if I was sitting at a traffic light, and I'd be like, oh, that would be so cool if at least little John did this, you know. So, after such a long period of time to actually see the book, like I can see it and hold it and feel it and it's real, it's been kind of an adventure getting here. My husband, by the way, is traveling today, and he sent me a text like right before I got on this call with you. And he said, look what I found. And he's in the concourse at the Atlanta airport, and my book is on a shelf. And I tell you what, that to me is mind blowing. That this whole process has been an adventure, a very good one, um, full of ups and downs. I mean, I've had my challenges between the rejections, and there have been highs and lows, but it's been an adventure. I love it. I love it all.
That's great. Now I have some questions about you as a person.
Mhm.
What is one thing that most people don't realize about you?
Oh, one thing that most people don't realize about me. That is a good question. I would probably say they probably don't realize that I write about all these really horrible things like people killing other people. And I really am kind of a gentle soul. Like, my family always calls me the family crybaby. I am very emotional. I cry when I'm happy. I cry when I'm sad. I cry when I'm mad. I mean, I think I'm a very emotional person, and most people probably don't get that from the stuff that I write.
I think that's true with quite a few of the mystery writers or whatever.
Sure.
They're like they're very calm, and they can you can't even imagine they can't even imagine killing someone or like
Right, right. I don't even like to kill bugs. And I remember seriously, once years ago, I was driving and I hit a squirrel. And I got to tell you, that stayed with me for a long time. It was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I hit that squirrel.
the poor
And
thing.
even after I drove past, I went around the block and I came back to see if I had actually killed it. But apparently I didn't. I must have hit it, and he, kind of got up and ran away because he wasn't in the street. But like that bothered me a lot. So yeah, now I go around writing books about people getting shot in the head. So go figure.
So, what is or are your passions when you're not writing, and how do you make time to do the things that you love?
Oh gosh, well, my family is one. I just adore them all, and I'm really blessed in that regard. I love to travel, and so I have been feeling some pangs, since COVID and the
Mm.
pandemic really shut travel down for the bulk of the past 18 months. So we didn't do any travel, and then finally we got up to the North Georgia mountains. I think it was earlier this year. So that was good, but I love, love, love to travel. I'm not always very good with languages. And so my husband, my family, because my son speaks like, 4 or 5 languages, and my daughter and my other son have taken a couple languages, but I'm not very good. So they always love to, say, oh, mommy, go over and you do the transaction. And I'm like, ah, but yeah, I'd say I love to travel. And then of course I like to read. I like to read for pleasure, which for the past 6 months, I hadn't gotten to do quite as much because I was busy kind of, working on my own book. And sometimes it's hard for me to read other people's books when I'm working on mine. Um, but I like to read for pleasure as well.
Mhm. Okay. Now, what does your writing space look like? And what
Oh,
what do you need to have around you when you're writing?
Um, gosh, so I write here where you see me. This is a little space off of our living room. It's supposed to be a bedroom. I converted it into my study. I'm a tea drinker. I don't drink coffee. And so I have a little table over to the side there that has a little teapot and various sorts of teas. So I have to have, when I sit down in the mornings to write, I have to have my bottle of water, and I usually click on the teapot. And I actually like to write by natural light. Like, I don't like to have lamps on. I just like the sunshine and the natural light. And even on days where it's cloudy, um, I just like the natural light without artificial light. And also I have to have a fan because I tend to get hot from time to time. Women out there will understand what I'm talking about. My tribe will know what I'm talking about. So I have my fan,
Yep.
you know.
um, okay. And okay,
Sorry, I knocked you off, but it's true.
it is very true. And do you like to music or silence when you're writing?
That's a great question. When I am writing new material, it has to be silent. Like, I can't even have, quiet music or anything. I have to write in silence new material. Now, when I go back in to do the rewrites, I can sometimes write to light jazz or light classical, like low, I should say low instead of light, but it has to be very low. Um, but all my books, I write my books in longhand, first draft. They're always in longhand. I don't know why. I've tried to just sit down at the computer and start, and it never works. So when I'm writing my first drafts in longhand, I have to have quiet. When I go back in to type up the handwritten revisions, I can usually type to some type of music then. So it's a
And
combination of both.
writers often have furry or feathered or otherwise non-human companions with them who to help them with their work. And do you have any of those, and they help or hinder you?
We don't have any pets. We have a house full of allergies, unfortunately, but I will adjust my camera and you can see my friend right up there.
Yeah.
That is Big Bird, and he sits there and he kind of oversees my work production and make sure to keep me honest. That is a stuffed animal that I bought for my oldest son, who is now in his first year of law school. But I bought that for him one Christmas, and he just loved that thing, and he would take it everywhere. And then, you know how boys get to this age where they're like, oh, that's not cool. And, those, so he kind of left it. But what I would do is I would put it in places where he was going to be. So then he'd find it. And then it became a joke between us once he got older. And so I might go into my closet and the thing would be sitting up on top of my rack. Or, I once went into the bathroom and he was sitting on the sink. So we start to put it in different places. But then when he moved, he left it here. So I've got him keeping me honest.
Aha. Okay. I just have two more questions for you.
Mhm.
One is, where can people find your work aside from Annie's Bookstop of Worcester? And I'm going to give a plug, which I do in every video, for Annie's Bookstop of Worcester. You can get Wanda's book at Annie's if you call us at 508-796-5613, or you can email us at orders@anniesbooksworcester.com. So where else can people get your book?
Sure, they can find it. I hope you will go to Annie's or your other independent bookstores. We need to really support our independent bookstores, so you can find it in independent bookstores. You can find it on indiebound.com, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and Target. Target is also carrying it. And as well, all those links are in my website at wandamorriswrites.com. So you can find me there. And I'm also on all the social media, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well.
Great. Oh, okay. Well, that was my next question is
Ah.
how can we follow your work and share your awesomeness?
Thank you. Yeah, I primarily do Instagram and Twitter, but I am on Facebook. But if you're following me on Facebook, you're also gonna, see conversations with me and my cousins where we're talking about the family Thanksgiving and things like that. So just be prepared, because my family really follows me on Facebook too. But yeah, I'm there as well.
You should get a Facebook author page.
You know what? I thought about doing that, and then my brain is just so scattered. And I was like, oh gosh, I'll get them mixed up. And so I just said, I'll just do this for now. And once I don't have so many balls in the air, I might actually go back and do that.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for you. So anyway, thank you so much for being on this video with me. And
Thank
if you
you.
ever do get to the Boston or Worcester area, I'd love to have you come to the store and visit.
I would love that. Thank you. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for having me, Selena.
Oh, you're welcome. And we will be seeing you, and hopefully your book will sell very well.
I hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you.